Hey, Composing Gloves here. This is the third video in Music Theory Essentials, and today we're going to talk about how to declare beats in a measure, and it's done through using something called the time signature. So, let's say you've got your staff here, and you've drawn out a treble clef, and now you want to declare how many beats are in a measure so that you can start creating some measures and start writing in some values. Well, you do it through this thing called the time signature, and as you can see, I already have one right here. I have a 4/4 time signature. So what this means is this top number is how many beats, number of beats, and this bottom number is what note gets the beat. So why would you need that? Well, there's all these different types of time signature, and these bottom numbers can be various things. Personally, I think they should just draw the note there, but they use a number instead. So a whole note is represented by 1, a half note is represented by 2, a quarter note is represented by a 4, an eighth note is represented by an 8, and if you ever see this, a 16th note is represented by a 16th note by 16. So pretty self-explanatory. So what we're saying here is the quarter note gets the beat. So in every measure, we will have what equals up to 4 quarter notes. It's important. Everything's relative to whatever this bottom number is. So now we know 4 quarter notes is what we are looking for. So let's cover some other time signatures. If we have something like this, like 3/4, this means that there are 3 beats and the quarter note gets the beat. So 3 quarter notes in a measure. If you have something like 3/8, this means the eighth note gets the beat. So there will only be 3 eighth notes in every measure. This also sets your barring. So whatever note gets the beat does not get barred together. What is barring? Well, there's a shorthand way of, instead of writing eighth notes like this, where they're always flagged by themselves, you can go like this. And that's how you can bar eighth notes. If you want to make them 16th notes, you just add another bar. It's the equivalent of 2 flags. Well, when you have a measure thing like 3/8, you're barring, you can't combine them quite like this. In a measure like this, they would all be barred as individual notes because each note gets its own beat. So you may come across music that's barred really funny, and they might just, it's all because of their time signature. They might just be using a different time signature. So let's talk about some standard rhythms that are used with this type of thing. So a 4/4 is like this. So if you have your 4/4 down here, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, okay? End of measure. Your measures must all add up to 4. If you have a measure that doesn't add up to 4, you've written your music incorrectly, and it's the devil's work, and people are going to freak out about it. So make sure that you always equal the amount you have set in your time signature. The amount of beats adds up. If you don't, it means you're missing a rest or something. If you have your note values correct, it means you need to put rests in to fill the rest of it out. So this would be counted right now. If you were to count this out loud at a tempo, let's say we say quarter note equals 60, it'd be pretty slow. It'd be like 1, 2, 3, 4, and you'd be counting it out loud, and that's your rhythm that you're using. Now, you're going pretty slow, so you may need to come up with another way of counting out loud so that you can keep your tempo more consistent, and that's called subdividing. So you can do this instead. You can do it in eighth notes, like so. And this would be counted 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and so on and so forth. Now you could get crazy. So you could count the ands in your quarter notes. So it'd be 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and that way you can keep a much more consistent tempo. It's much easier to subdivide and keep your tempo consistent. Now, to give you an idea of how we can combine our notes and rhythms together, you could have a note here and then an eighth note rest and then another note and another rest, and then you could have this going on. And we could finish it out with a quarter rest or whatever. That's a quarter rest. So this would be counted 1, 2, 3, and so forth. If you were to count all the beats out loud, it would be 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. I'm saying the rest much softer because the rest, there's no notes there. And most people will play a metronome out loud, something that clicks at a consistent rate and sets your tempo. So you could set it at 60 beats a minute, and then you could read this rhythm out loud. This is fundamental to learning to write rhythms, and certain styles of music, in fact, I'd venture to say nearly all of them, have a specific rhythmic thing about them. Like, for example, 3/4 is commonly known as the waltz, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. But they also have something called an accent. This changes the way we read our rhythm. So an accent looks like this. This is called a legato accent. And it makes this note louder than these other notes. So this would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Or if you're going for dance, you'd put an emphasis on 1 and 3. So it'd be 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. Or you could switch it up and go 2 and 4. So if these were over here instead and these were not there, it'd be 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. And that's where a lot of the clapping comes in. People will clap, and these first guys are called, this first guy is called the downbeat, the first beat of a measure. And that's pretty much rhythms. You can start combining them together and doing cool things. I'm going to start moving more towards harmony and intervals and scales. But I wanted to cover rhythms. That way you could start using them in interesting ways. If you ever see someone refer to the off beats or the up beats, they're talking about beats 2 and 4. And one other thing, so where you place this accent will emphasize things like in our waltz on a 3/4. If this was our notes, these were our notes, this would be 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. But we could do something different and make it like this with 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And it would go something like that. So where you place these accents creates your rhythms. They also have another thing that's called a staccato. It means play that note shorter than it looks. And it looks like a little dot above your note. And it goes 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. But it's not accented. It should be the same volume. It's just shorter. If you want it to be accented, you could add what's called a marcato. And it looks like a little TP or an A without the middle part on your notes. So this would actually be interpreted 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Just like so. This would be louder and it would be cut short. So this maintains the same volume. This makes it emphasized. A lot of these things are felt more than heard. We've kind of standardized the way, like this is this much louder, or this is that, or this is whatever. But back then, when these things were invented, they were just to achieve specific stylistic movements. Staccato notes had a certain quality that people just knew that if you're playing staccato, you played it shorter and it should be like so. I guarantee you've heard all this stuff in music before. A lot of people do it without realizing they're doing it. And that's how you achieve putting an emphasis on your rhythm. So you can make different rhythms with the same time signatures. This is what makes 4/4 so popular. Because if we were to do it 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, that would get very boring very quick. And so we've come up with this way to sort of emphasize things, and that makes it much more interesting. Plus these still have all these different values of notes in the eighth note rest and stuff, which makes it a lot easier to write music. So if you have any questions about this, drop them in the comments. Like, comment, subscribe. Check out my music on composinggloves.com, and have a blessed day.
I reflect on the ride, I reflect on my mind. I don't regret anything that caused my soul to sing.